Hello everyone and welcome to More Tech with me. My name is Yaniss and in this video I want to show you how you can use Python to control and therefore automate layers edits and some of the most basic functions in Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud 2014, but it should work on any other Creative Cloud version of the software and even on some Creative Suite like CS6 or CS5. But as you can see, I'm using Windows, in Windows 10 to be specific. If you are a Mac user, unfortunately you're gonna have to use Bootcamp to install Windows if you want to follow this tutorial. Finally, I'm using Python 3.7. So every other users of Python 3 should be able to follow. And as you can see, I'm also using Jupyter Notebook. The only reason I'm using this IDE at the moment is just for the purpose of this tutorial, because it's gonna make it way easier for me to show you how the code works. So yeah, if you're interested in a text-only version of this tutorial, I published an article on moretechwithme.com which contains all of the code and all of the explanations you're gonna hear in this video. So yeah, if you want to copy paste some of the code I'm gonna write right now, the easiest way for you to do so is to follow the link in the description down below. And finally, about the tutorial itself, obviously I can't cover every single tool that you can use in Photoshop, and as a matter of fact I don't know how to use all of them. But if you're interested in specific functions of Photoshop and you're interested in like using them with Python, but you don't hear of them in this video, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll try to find the time to look at documentations and maybe release a second part of this video, or at least update the text-only article. So yeah, without further ado, today we're gonna look at a few things we can do with Python in Photoshop. So if you want a summary of what we're gonna look at how to open files in Photoshop with Python. We're gonna look at how to edit the content of the text layers. So it's gonna be changing the size and changing the actual text inside the text layer. We're gonna look at how to resize images in Photoshop, and then we're gonna also look at how to export in PNG and JPG. So yeah, let's get right into it. So as you can see, I'm using Jupyter Notebook. So as I said, it's only to make it easier for me to type code, run it, and show you the results instantly without having to type in the terminal or whatever. So yeah, the first thing we're gonna want to do is to actually open the Photoshop software. You don't have to do this, you can do it manually technically, but you can do it in Python too, so I'm gonna show you this. So the first thing you want to do is import two libraries. These two libraries we're gonna use are called win32com.client and OS. And finally, once you have imported these two libraries, you can create a new variable that we're gonna call PSApp for Photoshop application. And then we can use the library win32com to call our computer so it can open the Photoshop application, like so. And now you're gonna see I'm gonna run this cell and it's gonna open Photoshop in the background. And boom, here's our interface. Here's our Photoshop interface. Now the second thing we want to do obviously is to open an actual file. The way you're gonna want to do that is to write PSApp in reference to the variable the Photoshop application we created previously, dot open, and then you're gonna want to reference the file path of your actual .psd file. So in order to find this, you're going to your actual file and then there's the location, and I just have it already saved on my notepad, so I'm just gonna paste it. Yep. So here's, you can see the full file path and the template playground.psd, which is my PSD file for this tutorial. And once you run this cell, boom, you're getting an output, object open, and if we navigate to our Photoshop now, we can see that my actual Photoshop PSD file has been opened without me going to file open manually, but simply by inputting the PSD file path into this line of code. So yeah, that's the way you can open a PSD file in Photoshop with Python. Now that we have our file loaded, we are ready to make some edits. And the first thing I want to show you how to do is to change the text content of a text layer in Photoshop. So manually you would use like the text tool and you will type a new text. So new text. Except in this case, we want to do it through our Python script. So the first thing we're gonna want to do is to create a variable that we're gonna call document, which is gonna be our actual document. Like PSApp is the actual interface, whereas doc is gonna be the document that we just opened, or at least the active document. So to do that, we do doc equal PSApp dot application dot active document. And once you run this, it's not gonna give you any feedback except if there's an error, but it should consider that now everything we're gonna work on doc, on the variable doc, is gonna mean this template playground.psd file. So yeah, now that we have this, we can create new variables that are gonna be specifically referring to this text layer that is right here. So in order to do that, I'm gonna call a new variable that I'm gonna call layer text equal doc.art layers. It's just something you have to learn. And then we're gonna use the list formatting of Python to reference which layer of a document we're gonna want to start messing with the layer text variable. So in this case, my text layer is called text layer. So I copy it and I put it there. Then the second thing we want to do is to edit the layer text. In order to do that, we are going to do a new variable again, which I'm going to call text of layer. And it's going to be the layer text dot text item. To finally change the content of the layer, we're going to reference this new variable that we just created, copy paste, dot contents, and this is where we can finally create some new text. So here I'm going to be like new input, and right now you can see that the text of the text layer is called new text. I'm really original here, but by running these 3 lines, it's going to change the text of the text layer to new input. So if I run this, boom, new input. It's as simple as this, really simple. I can just run this cell again, and it's changing the text, just like that. And as I said, you can do the same for like the esports facts text layer, social media text layer. You just have to change your name here to reference the correct layer, and then you're up to changing the content of it. So now the other thing I would like to show you is how you can change the size of a text. So manually, what one will do is go into text layer and select a new size manually here from like 6 to 72, or manually inputting a number. Thankfully, there is also a way to do so with Python. And actually, we're not even going to have to create a new variable for this one, because we're just going to use a new function of this text of layer variable. So same, we just write text of layer dot, and instead of contents that allows us to change the actual content of a text layer, we're going to use the function size. And size just requires an integer, so a number. I don't think there's a limit on how big your text can be, but for the purpose of this tutorial, let's say we're gonna want to put it in 72. So as you can see, at the moment it's 12, and with this cell we're gonna put it in 72. So let's run this, and now you can see the text is now in 72 size. And if I want to put it back to 12, the application is busy. And yeah, right. So that's one of the errors that you can get. The message filter indicated that the application is busy. In order to run any of this code I'm showing you and I'm gonna show you, you need to not be interacting with the application. So in this case, I need to deselect the actual layer. And now I can run this cell. And now I can see my size 12. So yeah, that is how you change the size of a text layer in Photoshop with Python. A new thing I want to show you is how you can resize images in Photoshop with Python. This one is really easy too. The only thing you need to make sure of is that your application has the correct units. So the way you want to do this, you want to go to Edit, into your Preference, into your Units and Rulers. And here you want to make sure that your rulers is set up as pixels. If you're using another things, you're not going to be able to use the same numbers as I do. So yeah, that's like one other thing you can do to make this tutorial as seamless as possible with your own interface. So in my case, I'm using pixels. At the moment, this image is 2048 pixels of width by 2048 pixels of height. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to split this in half and make it 1024 by 1024. In order to do that, we want to use the function resize image, which is going to be called upon from the document variable. So we take doc and we write resize image. And it's a function. So now we're going to have to put some parameters inside. If you've ever been to image size, these are the parameters we're going to have to define. So width, height, resolution, and resample. You don't need to specify everything. Like you could technically write in your doc.resize image, you could write the width, the height, the resolution, and the resample method, but you don't have to. If you just want to change the width and the height and keep the resolution and the sampling method the same, you just have to delete this and keep it the width and the height. So in this case, we want to do 1024 to 1024. And now you're going to see I'm going to run this. And the application is busy again because, yes, I was showing you the image stays window. So now I'm out of this and I can run the cell again. And now it's done. My image is now 1024 by 1024 pixels. And you can see that the resolution has not been changed, and the resampling method hasn't been changed either. So as I showed you, you can also change the resolution and you can also change the resampling method. So yeah, that is how you resize images in Photoshop with Python. Now, I want to cover how to export your results in Photoshop with Python. So there are two different kind of exports I figured out, the PNG one and the JPEG one. So we're going to start with the PNG. In order to export your result as a PNG file, there's going to be a few things you're going to need to do. The first one is to create a new variable that we're going to call options. And it's like a part of where we're going to store how we want the file to be saved. To call this variable, we're going to have to write win32com.client, kind of the way we originally opened the app, .dispatch, and then Photoshop.export options save for web, which is basically the equivalent of manually going to your Photoshop application, to file, and then to the Python code is going to be doing here. Then we want to add a few parameters to this option variable, which are going to be format equal 13 and options.png8 equal false. The reason we're writing options.png8 equal false is because we want our export to be the best quality possible. And setting png8 as true will mean that you want to export your PNG file as PNG 8 bits. But we want PNG 24 bits, which is why we write false. And the dot format equal 13 is just something you need to do if you want a PNG file at the end. Eventually, we also want another variable that we're going to call PNG file that is going to be the file path and the name of the file we want to export. So in my case, I want to export the result on my desktop and I want to call it export.png. So that's what I'm gonna paste here. C users Yaniss desktop /export.png. And now that we have all of this, we can finally call our document and call the function export. And then there's a few parameters we want to input, which are export in equal PNG file, which is where do we want to export in? We want to export in PNG file. we want to write export as equal to. This is just something you have to do if you want a PNG file. And finally, options equals options. So this is it. This is like the 8 lines of code you're gonna have to use if you want to create a PNG file out of whatever you did in your Photoshop interface. And you're gonna see if I run this file now, if I run this cell now, and I wait for it to be done. And now if I navigate my desktop, I can see a new PNG file that is export. And if I open it, I can see this is the file that is present in my Photoshop interface. And if we look at the information of the file, it's 1024 by 1024. Now, if I were, let's say, to put it back to 2048, I'm waiting for the cell to be finished, and I export it again. Now we can see my export file here is now 1.7 megabytes, and if I open it and I go to the file info, I can see that now the dimension is 2048 by 2048. And yeah, it's a PNG file, so the transparency will be saved in your export. But this is it. This is how you export a PNG file in Photoshop with Python. Now that I showed you how to export in PNG, I want to show you how to export in JPEG. It's kind of similar, but also a bit different in the sense that the options are going to be different and the parameters are going to be different. So let's get into it. So the same way you wrote options equal win32com.client.dispatch blah blah blah, we're going to actually be able to just copy and paste this. This is going to be the same. The two things that are going to change for options are that the format is now, instead of being 13 for PNG, it's going to be 6 for JPEG. And then you also want to add a quality parameter, and this one is between 0 and 100. The same way, if you export manually, let's say you want to save as, and you want to save a JPEG, it's gonna ask you to go from 0 to 12. This is the same, this is like the same scale, but instead of being from 0 to 12, it's between 0 and 100. So I would advise, do your test, figure what kind of quality you're into, and eventually put this number. I'm putting 100 because I want the maximum quality possible. And now I also need the file path and the name of the file. So I'm gonna call it JPEG file equal, and to be honest, I'm just gonna paste this. And instead of calling it export.png, I'm gonna call it export.jpg. And then the same thing we did for the PNG file above, doc.export, export in equal JPEG file this time, export as equal to, just something we'll have to do, and options equal options. And now I'm gonna run this. It's already done. And if I go to my desktop and I'm looking for my export, it's a JPEG file. And if I open it, it's my file in probably 2048, yeah, 2048 by 2048. And as you can see, it's a JPEG file here in the type. And this was basically it. This is how you can export a JPEG file in Photoshop with Python. So now, one of the cool things that you can do with all of this code is that you can create multiple instances of the same image really quickly, really fast. And the way I'm going to show you how to do this is we're going to create a list of text. And it's just going to be a list, and the text will be text 1, text 2, and text 3 for the purpose of this. And then we're going to simply create a loop for text in list of text. And what we're going to want to do, we're going to want to change the text layer with a text. So basically what I want to do here, I want to create 3 different images instantly that change with the text, text 1, text 2, and text 3 instead of these 3 simple text here. So the way we do it is like a simple loop for text in list of text. We do our text changing code, and then we want to export it. And the way we're gonna do this, we're gonna do PNG. I'm just gonna paste this, and here I want to be able to change the name of a file programmatically. And the way you're gonna do this is you're gonna call the variable text within the PNG file variable this way, and then doc export, boom, 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 we're good. And you're gonna see now it's gonna create 3 images. One's gonna be called text1.png, text2.png, and text3.png, with the text being different in each. So to be able to see it, let's put the size to like something like 40. Cool. And now I'm gonna run this. And as you can see, after a bit of patience, we now have our 3 files. And if I open them, text1 says text1, text3 says text3, and text2.png says text2. So if you have a list with all of the text, with like a list of text that you want to change a PSD file with, using Python is an amazing way so that you can do it automatically instead of having to manually input your new text, save it, etc. for every single thing. So yeah, that's one of the ways I used all of this code for one of my personal projects. And yeah, that's basically it really. So as I said, if there's any options of Photoshop that you want to explore with Python that I haven't mentioned in this video, feel free to drop a comment in the section below, and either I'll update you in the comments, or I'm gonna first make the update on the text-only article that I'm gonna share with you guys in the comment section. And yeah, I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you encounter any error, I would be happy to help. And yeah, thank you for your time, everyone.